government emerge from this chaos that we've seen over the past couple of weeks? Or do you fear the ghosts of the Iranian experience?
Well, it's always possible, but I'm dubious about it for two reasons. One is that spark, food prices, they're not going to come down. If anything, they're going to get worse. So, I mean, people might be out in the street congratulating themselves, feeling happy, but the fuse is still burning. The thing that, you know, the new government is not going to bring down food prices. It can't, especially in Egypt, which has not been able to feed itself for many, many years. The other point, of course, is that I'm going to be skeptical because you look back at the history of the 20th century. We've seen revolution after revolution after revolution, and it's always greeted the same way. People always thinking it's the new dawn of democracy. But if inside the revolution there's a cadre of disciplined, organized ideologues, the revolution can be hijacked. And we've seen that time and time and time again. And the death toll has been in the hundreds of millions as a result. If you look at what happened in China, in Russia, the rise of the Nazis, you know, just when a revolution occurs, look very carefully.
Mohamed, who do you see emerging to assume the reins of government?
I think at this point, what you're going to find is that the people that played a very large role in this, certainly instigating it, are the youth. And as we've said before, they're from all segments of society, rich, very rich, as well as the poor. And I think what will be very interesting is to see youth for the very first time play a role in the forming of a government. It may seem naive at this point to think that, but the reality is they're playing a role as this situation continues. For example, we've seen the Google account manager who was obviously taken in as the administrator of the main website that launched this movement. He's very well off, obviously. He's not in need of money, and yet he's willing to sacrifice his life, as are many others like him. And he's playing a role behind the scenes. And they are the ones that kept faith, in the sense that they're still very respected. You had at the beginning of this situation several people and institutions that were respected or diminished somewhat. Omar Suleiman is an excellent example of that. At the beginning he was respected. As soon as he opened his mouth, became clear he's no different than Mubarak, if not worse. But the Shabab, as they're known, the youth, are actually maintaining that very clean image as this goes on. And one of the reasons is their choice not to use violence despite extreme provocation by Mubarak and his thugs. Today should have been a very violent day after prayers. They were supposed to march on that palace and literally burn it down. That would have been an expectation for a lot of people given all that's gone on, but they chose not to. They kept chanting that it will remain peaceful, and not a single stone was thrown, and that, I think, will raise their stock very much. What they'll do is throw their weight behind somebody. Perhaps you're going to have figures emerge, and I want to bring something that's important about this sphere of leadership in Egypt. Egypt is known in the Arab world as Ard al-Kinana, which means the land of leadership. So I'm not worried about the land of leadership producing a leader for this process. You have many former faces of the regime that have distanced themselves, like Amr Moussa, who's now a Secretary General of the Arab League, as a possibility. But these are all very wild speculations. You have al-Baradei as an outsider whose character has been assassinated by the state media because he was seen as a potential president. You have Ayman Noor and other leaders of current parties who are secular. The Muslim Brotherhood does not have a charismatic or a single leader to put forward, and you can be certain that they will not play a role in the presidential elections as much as they will in the parliamentary elections. That would be something they'd prefer.
Atif, given the success of this relatively bloodless, there were about 400 people killed, revolution in Egypt, what other countries are likely to follow Egypt's example and attempt regime change through people power?
Well, there is no question about it. The reverberations are already being felt in different parts. I think every dictator in the Middle East, or even in further apart and afar places would be worried. There is expectation here that the events that took place in Tunisia and then in Egypt are not going to be confined to these two countries, and that they're very likely to go to other places. As you know, the Arab world is rife with dictators. Democracy seems to have gone to Africa, to Latin America, to many countries in Asia, but has not been able to knock down some of these regimes in the region. There are many candidates. From Yemen, Saleh has been there for a long period of time, 40 years and more for Gaddafi. In Algeria, the people are very unhappy with the government. In Jordan, already there is a change in government and there are demonstrations. There isn't a single country that is likely to be spared. Today, people feel that the power of the people has been able to change, and that this capacity, this empowerment, is not going to be lost on other people.
All right, John Thompson, how has the West responded to the goings-on in Egypt? What are Canada and the United States feeling, the governments anyway, as to what's transpiring there?
Well, actually, they've more or less reacted much the same way as our media and many of our sort of consumers of information have. Not very alertly and not very intelligently. There's the usual optimism that we've seen with so many revolutions in the past that somehow or other things will be different, and often a willingness to overlook some of the acute dangers that are lurking in the way. I mean, I wish Egypt well, but again, I've seen revolutions going sour too often to really be that optimistic about the outcome.
Atif?
Well, I'm very much concerned about the fact that this revolution is going to be like others, and in many respects is going to devour itself. There are no indications. Let me tell you...
we have about 30 seconds, Atif.
Yes, it's absolutely clear that in the nature of any dictatorship is to eliminate any possible alternative, and the Egyptian regime was very successful in doing so. Today, right as we're talking, a new party has emerged. All the human rights groups in Egypt got all together and unified under one single party. The expectation is going to be rich diversity that is going to come about, and the Egyptian people are going to create their own future.
Atif Kubursi, thank you so much for joining us today. Mohamed El Rashidy and John Thompson, thank you as well for your expertise on this situation in Egypt. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.